Hi, this is Vicki with Crafting for Fun. Today I want to show you how I made this card. This card was created using two of my favorite items from the new Stampin' Up catalog. I am using the Blossoms for You stamp, which is a single stamp available in the catalog. It comes only in wood. And the Fun Flower Punch, which is a new flower punch shape that was created to coordinate with the Blossoms for You stamp set. So I'm going to be using both of those items. If you are attending Scrap Fest, you have received both of these items as part of your goodie bag. So I'm going to show you how to make a card using those items. Let me show you the other items that you'll need to create this card. You'll need some inks. I am using Cherry Cobbler, which is a deep red, Daffodil Delight, which is a yellow, and to stamp my cinnamon I'm using Early Espresso, which is a chocolate brown colored ink. I'm also using a sentiment stamp. This is a Hello stamp, and this is from a very inexpensive stamp set that I happen to have. And I'm using a couple of additional punches. I'm using a punch that creates an edge that looks like notebook paper. This is optional, but if you have something like this, it doesn't matter whether it's the square holes or the rounded holes. It looks like torn notebook paper. That would be great. If not, you can just omit this step and just use a plain piece of paper. You'll see what I mean in a moment. To create my leaf shape, I am using my Stampin' Up Blossom punch. Amazingly, these petals make great leaves, but you could certainly cut a leaf by hand or use a leaf punch, or even cut a leaf out using a die cutting machine. I'm using a corner rounder. The corner rounder I'm using today is the Project Life corner rounder, but any corner rounder would do, or you could leave your corners square. That's entirely up to you. And I'm using a 1/2 inch circle punch and a 7/8 inch scallop circle punch, but you could certainly cut these elements out by hand. Now let me show you which paper products you'll need. You'll need a piece of cardstock for your card base. This one measures 4 1/4 by 11, makes a top fold card, and I have it scored at 5 1/2. I have a strip of green or old olive colored paper, which is a 1/2 inch wide and 4 1/4 inches long. I have a piece of orange pattern paper, which is 1 3/4 inch wide and 1 3/4 inch long and 4 1/4 inch wide. I actually have a Project Life journaling card. You may have noticed I used my Project Life corner rounder, and now I'm using a Project Life card. If you have these, this is a great way to use up these cards, but if you don't have this, just a regular piece of white cardstock would work fine. And then I have scraps of green and white cardstock, old olive and whisper white cardstock, which I'm going to use on my card. So let me get set up here and I'll show you how to make this card. Okay, I'm going to begin by stamping my flowers first. So I have my Cherry Cobbler and my Daffodil Delight ink pads opened up here. I'm going to bring in a piece of scrap paper just to protect my work surface, and I have my pieces of whisper white cardstock. So what I'm going to do first is ink up my flower with my Cherry Cobbler ink. Make sure I have really good ink coverage, and I'm going to just stamp that down one time. Now you may have noticed that I have a little mark here on my stamp. That just helps me line it up easier with my punch. I also have a mark that coordinates with where that same place would be on my punch. It makes it just a faster, easier process to line it up. I'm going to set that aside. I also need to re-ink the center of my flower, and I'm going to just take a little piece of scrap here, and I just want that center round medallion there. Now I'm going to take a baby wipe, which I have handy somewhere around here. Whoops, let me grab a baby wipe. Sorry about that. Grabbed a baby wipe. I'm going to wipe off my stamp because I'm going to be working with some yellow ink. There we go. Now I'm going to ink up my stamp with the Daffodil Delight, and I'm going to do the same thing. I just want that center section. There we go. Perfect. Okay, I'm ready to put those ink pads aside. I'm done with them. And now I'm going to do some punching. First, I'm going to grab that little 1/2 inch circle punch, and I need to punch out the very center circle in the middle of that flower image and it fits perfectly in that 1/2 inch circle. And I'm done with that punch. Now I'm going to take my 7/8 inch scallop punch, and it fits perfectly over the little scallop portion in the center of the flower. And I just need to take the extra time to be careful and line that up. And it might help if I had my glasses on. There we go. Got that punched, and now I'm ready to punch my flower image out. So I have my flower image here, and if I had been paying attention I would have seen where my dot was, but I wasn't. I'm just going to trim this down to make it easier to fit inside of my punch. Line things up. And this punch, the one thing I really love about this punch is that when you have the flower shape in there, it cuts all the way up to the punched area. It doesn't leave any white space around it, which is different from some of the other punches. And I don't think I have it in there correctly. Let me see. I certainly don't. It didn't look like it was lining up just right. Okay, now I have it in there. So I put it in there and punch, and you'll see that there is no white space around this flower image. So I'm going to take those flower parts and set them aside. And now I'm going to grab my card base and begin doing a little assembly. I have my card base here, and I'm going to fold it in half. Then I'm going to take a bone folder and make sure I get a really good crease there. And then I'm going to take my orange piece, my 1 3/4 by 4 1/4 piece, and just put some adhesive on the back. And I like to use my mat here on my work surface. I want to get it about 1/2 inch from the bottom. There we go. And I'm going to take my other piece, apply adhesive, and it's going to go right next to the very top of this. I'm going to open it up, and it looks like I have a little bit of an overhang there, so I'm going to trim it even with the edge of my card. There we go. So that's ready to go. Now I want to add my Project Life piece, my Project Life card. And the reason I chose to use a Project Life card is 2 reasons. First of all, I have plenty of them lying around, and secondly, it already has lines on it, which makes it easy to use for this purpose. So I'm going to grab my paper trimmer, and I'm going to put my Project Life. Now my Project Life card has lines going across horizontally and then going across horizontally in the short direction. I want to use where it goes all the way across the widest portion of the card. And this is a 6 by 4 card, and I'm going to cut it exactly in half. So I have 2 pieces that are 3 by 4, and I'm going to actually use both of these pieces. If you don't have these cards, then just use plain white cardstock. So I'm going to take my punch, my notebook top punch, and I'm actually going to, at the very top where you have like the wide margin at the top of your paper, that's where I'm going to be punching. And I'm going to just punch the top of both of these cards. So I have one ready to go. And now the other. Oops. Let's see here. There we go. So, remove my scrap. Now I want to take a corner rounder, and you can use any corner rounder that you have. I have the Project Life corner rounder, and I'm going to round the corner that is squared off. Just fit it all the way in there and round it. And fit the opposite. And again, any corner rounder will do. So now I have both both pieces have a rounded corner and are punched across the top. Now one of these is for the inside of my card and one is for the outside. The one that's for the outside of the card is going to be stamped. So I'm going to take my chocolate or my early espresso ink and I am going to stamp my sentiment. And you could really stamp it straight or crooked, it doesn't matter. And so it relieves some of the tension because you don't have to be so perfect. So I have my card front stamped and I'm ready to bring back my base and begin assembling. So I'm going to apply adhesive on the back of this little card, and I just put it on here kind of at an angle like that. And I take my flower piece and some dimensionals. I like to use dimensionals for a couple of reasons. It gives the flower a little more depth and dimension, and it's also a really good way to get it to stick on here on the front of the card. So I put one in the center and I'm going to put a couple on the back. Maybe 3. So here in the center I'm going to peel off the top of that adhesive, and then I'm going to go ahead and line up my yellow part, and then my red part I'm just going to put tape on it. It would be easy to switch the colors up for this card. I've made it in several different colorways and they all look kind of cute. So I'm not going to stick this on quite yet. I need to create my leaves. So I'm going to take the blossom punch, and like I said, I'm going to use this to make my leaves. And I'm going to find that little green piece of paper that I had. And what I do is I stick it in there, and I only need half of the shape. I don't need the whole thing, I only need half. And again, this is an optional step, but I like to go ahead and just sponge the edges. Okay, now I'm going to cut off a couple of these. One, and I'll actually have an extra. So I have 2 here handy. And I'm going to go ahead and just crumble it up now. Yep, you heard me. Crumble it up with your fingers. And after it's all crumbled up, you'll want to straighten it back out. You can fold it in half to look like veining in the middle, but I kind of like how easy this is. And it also, again, just adds a little bit of extra depth and dimension to the card. So the edges are sponged and it's all crumbled up and straightened back out. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a little adhesive to the bottom near the point. Bring my flower back, and I'm going to go ahead and attach my leaves. So I've got one there and maybe one there. Now I'm ready to go ahead and attach this to my card. So I come over here near the edge, try not to cover up my words, and there we go. So the front of my card is complete. But I want to mirror this little notebook paper effect on the inside of my card. So I'm going to bring back that Project Life card, and I have just a little piece hanging on there. And I put the original one on the front of the card at an angle, so I'm also going to put that one at an angle. So my front of my card says hello, very simple greeting, and on the inside I can write whatever message I choose. And that is all there is to creating this card. I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope it inspired you to try to use the supplies that you have. If you have these stamps and punches, it would be great to make a card similar to this, and use whatever papers that you have in your stash. If you have any questions, please email me at craftingforfun@gmail.com, or as always, you can check out my blog, craftingforfun.blogspot.com, for additional craft ideas. Hope to see you back here again soon.